the things I don't do much anymore is play the piano, and I wouldn't even call what I do playing the piano. Let's call it, I sit down and I vent any frustration or anxiety. When I was a small boy, my mother tried to get me into taking the piano, and I think we lived in Kentucky. I was probably 5 or 6 years old, and she would take me to the piano teacher, and I just wouldn't play. I'd go out and play with the piano teacher's son, and she'd come back, pick me up, and unfortunately when I was smaller I just didn't have the self-discipline to sit down and play, let alone practice. I couldn't even sit at the piano and play or concentrate. I started playing when I turned 24. It was a birthday present to myself. I always wanted to follow through on that, so I went and I took about a year and a half worth of lessons. And it's like anything, you use it or you lose it, and I've lost a lot of it, but I still, one of the things I said when I bought a house is I wanted to get a piano, and I've got this old junk that I bought for a couple $100. And the nice thing about a real piano is it allows you to bang the keys, so you know, you really can get finger exercises that way. And I find that when I don't play the piano for a while, it actually starts to hurt. And I have an electronic keyboard as well, and it's just not the same thing. I think music is a language, just like Chinese is a language, English. People have asked, is Chinese, Mandarin specifically, a difficult language? And for me the answer is yes. I don't think that it's an insurmountable language. I will say this, all of us here speak English, and I would say probably most of us speak English incorrectly. And English is probably an easy language to understand. For example, if somebody came up to me and said, "Me hungry," it's not proper English, but I understand what they're saying, and they need something to eat. In Chinese, it's probably even simpler, where all you'd say is "wo," and the saying like your stomach hurts, that actually means hungry in Chinese, and it's just a single letter, the letter E, in pinyin. Now pinyin means spell sound in Mandarin, and pinyin is the translation or the romanization of Chinese characters, or Hanzi, into words we can understand and see. Because when we see Chinese symbols, what they call Hanzi, which means Chinese characters, I'm just starting now to dabble in learning it, and there's no way I could have learned that at the beginning, and there's no way that looking at a symbol tells you how it sounds. And so that's why they created pinyin to teach, and I think children in China also use it before they even tackle Chinese characters, because Chinese consists of the use of tones. So you could have one word, one of the more popular ones in Chinese is ma, M-A. Now, ma in one tone could mean mother. Ma in another tone could mean horse. And in another tone, I believe it means marijuana. And I forget what the last tone means. But depending on how you say these words, people would either understand you, or they'll look at you and have no idea what you're talking about. And that has happened to me several times, where I remember one time I was asking where the train station is, and I went up and I'd say, "What's your John Zanali?" which means train station, which Watcher, and John is station, and then Zai Nali is where, is at where. And these people, I was in the middle of Dongguang somewhere, and these two women looked at each other, and shook their head. And I know that's one of the frustrating things is you'd think that there'd be, even if my tone was slightly off, you'd think they'd be able to put a few things together. But unfortunately, it's not that simple. If your tone is off slightly, you'll probably have people scratching their heads. So that's one of the interesting things with Chinese, is that I would say very basic words, it's not hard to get around, but once you start trying to go from the beginning level up to the intermediate level, it gets pretty difficult. It's not just memorizing the vocabulary. You have to know how to say it, and in what order it needs to be said. So that's one thing with Chinese that's challenging. I wanted to revisit one thing, because after I finished I realized I didn't cover it well enough, is tones in Chinese. And I just want to clarify, I went and looked it up, the fourth word that I couldn't remember. For tones in Chinese, for example, I was talking about ma, M-A. If you look at the Chinese characters, then in many times, sometimes they're similar, but in other times the characters don't look anything alike, even though they sound similar. And that's why you could have identical words mean different things, which is another confusing thing in Chinese, is you could have the same word, but the context in which it is used will determine what the meaning is. But there's four tones in Chinese typically. There's a high tone, which they call first tone. So the word ma, okay, first tone would be mother. It would be ma, okay, which is straight line over the vowel that's being used. Okay, the second tone in Chinese is ma. It's almost like asking a question, ma, and that means hemp or marijuana. The third tone would be an up and down, or down and up. And basically, ma would be ma, so you'd go down and then go up. And that would mean horse. Now the fourth word means to insult somebody, would be the fourth tone. And the fourth tone is a sharp downward spike. You're starting at the top of your pitch and going down. So it'd be ma. So it would be ma, okay, or I should say ma, 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 ma. And those are your four tones, and those mean four completely different words. With a lot of you know ni hao, which means hello. Well, hao means good. But if you said how, sharp fourth tone, that would mean number. It also has a bunch of other meanings as well. Still a work in progress. Wish I could tell you I was perfect at it. And it's remembering the vocabulary is half the battle, but then you have to remember, okay, I know it's these letters, but what is the tone? Because you could remember the word, but if you don't remember the tone, they're not going to understand. And that's, again, the tricky part about learning Chinese. Okay, so I thought I would clarify that.